The Sweet Life Bakery hadn't changed in 30 years. The same bell chimed as I pushed open the door, the same scent of vanilla and almond extract hung in the air, and the same Mrs. Rodriguez stood behind the counter, though her hair had gone from pepper gray to snow white. "I need to know," I said, placing the old newspaper clipping on the glass counter. "It's been 20 years. Please." She glanced at the headline, "Birthday Party Tragedy. 18 Children Hospitalized." No answers. Her weathered hands trembled as she reached for the article. "You're Tommy's mother," she whispered. "The blue cake with rocket ships. The one you warned me about." I leaned forward. "Why did you try to stop me that day?" She looked around the empty bakery, then flipped the open sign to closed. "Sit," she commanded, gesturing to a small table in the corner. "It's time you knew." 20 years earlier. The bakery had been bustling that morning, filled with Saturday customers picking up weekend treats. I waited patiently in line, watching Tommy press his nose against the display case, pointing at every colorful creation. "The rocket ship one, Mommy, it's perfect." The cake was a masterpiece of blue fondant and silver stars, topped with a toy rocket that could be removed and played with later. Mrs. Rodriguez had outdone herself, just as she had for every birthday cake in our neighborhood for the past 3 decades. "It's exactly what we ordered," I said, reaching for my wallet. "Tommy's going to." "No." Mrs. Rodriguez's hand shot out, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. "Don't take it, please." "Excuse me?" She glanced at Tommy, then lowered her voice. "Something's wrong. The candles, don't like them. Take another cake, any other cake." "Mrs. Rodriguez, we specifically ordered." "I'll refund your money. Double it. Just don't." "Is everything okay?" Another customer called from the line. Mrs. Rodriguez straightened, her professional smile snapping back into place. "Of course. Just discussing delivery options." She boxed the cake with shaking hands, movements stiff and mechanical. As she handed it over, she tried one last time. "Please, the candles." I dismissed her warning as the eccentricity of an aging baker. After all, what could possibly be wrong with birthday candles? The party started at 2 p.m. 18 children from Tommy's first grade class ran through our backyard, playing games and burning off sugar-fueled energy. My husband, Mike, manned the grill while I arranged presents and set up the cake. The candles were beautiful, silver and blue, matching the rocket ship theme perfectly. They came with a cake, tucked carefully in the box. "Cake time," I called, and children came running. They gathered around the table, Tommy in the center, face glowing with excitement. 7 candles for 7 years, plus 1 for good luck. The flames danced as we sang, casting strange shadows across the blue fondant. "Make a wish, buddy," Mike said, ruffling Tommy's hair. Tommy closed his eyes, concentrating hard. The other children leaned in, eager for their share of cake. He blew. The flames didn't go out. Instead, they grew, turning an eerie greenish blue. A sweet, strange smell filled the air, like cotton candy mixed with something metallic. "Mommy?" Tommy's voice sounded distant. "I feel funny." Then the screaming started. Children collapsed like dominoes. Some clutched their throats, others their stomachs. Tommy slumped forward, his face nearly hitting the cake before Mike caught him. I grabbed the phone, dialed 911, and watched helplessly as 18 children fought for breath in my backyard. Parents who had been chatting by the fence rushed to their kids, shouting names, checking pulses. The ambulances arrived 6 minutes later. By then, all the children were unconscious. The EMCs worked quickly, efficiently, loading small bodies onto stretchers while shouting medical terms I didn't understand. "What happened?" they asked. "The cake," I whispered. "They didn't even eat it, just the candles." The hazmat team arrived next. They sealed off the yard, took samples of everything: cake, candles, air, grass. Parents followed ambulances to 3 different hospitals while police asked questions I couldn't answer. Hours later, in the emergency room waiting area, my phone rang. "The children?" Mrs. Rodriguez's voice quavered. "Are they?" "Alive, all of them, but unconscious." "How did you know?" She hung up. The children recovered slowly over the next week. None remembered what had happened. The official investigation found nothing conclusive. No toxins, no gases, no explanations. The case was filed away as a medical mystery. We moved away 6 months later. Tommy had nightmares, and no one in the neighborhood looked at us the same way. Who could blame them? It was the birthday party that almost killed their children. Now, 20 years later, I sat across from Mrs. Rodriguez, watching her hands shake as she poured tea. "Why now?" she asked. "After all this time?" I pulled out another newspaper clipping, this one recent. "Because it's happening again. Different city, different baker, same story. 18 children at a birthday party all collapse after the candles were lit." She closed her eyes. "They found them." "Found what? Who are they?" "The recipes." She opened a drawer behind the counter and pulled out an ancient-looking book. "My grandmother's warnings were right. Some things shouldn't be baked into this world." "Baked into?" "Why do you think people make wishes on birthday candles?" She leaned forward. "In the old countries, baking wasn't just about flour and sugar. It was about opening doors. Sometimes between kitchens and hearts, sometimes between other places." I stared at her, remembering the greenish-blue flames, the metallic smell, the way the children fell like puppets with cut strings. "What exactly was in that cake, Mrs. Rodriguez?" She opened the book, its yellow pages filled with handwritten recipes and warnings in multiple languages. "The question isn't what was in the cake," she whispered. "The question is, what was trying to come through when your son made his wish?" The bell above the door chimed, making us both jump. A young mother entered, holding a child's hand. "We'd like to order a birthday cake," she said brightly. "Something special for my daughter's 7th birthday." Mrs. Rodriguez and I exchanged glances, 20 years of secrets hanging between us. "Of course," she said finally. "But perhaps no candles this time." Mrs. Rodriguez's ancient recipe book lay open between us, its pages filled with what looked like normal recipes at first glance. But between instructions for sponge cake and buttercream were warnings written in faded red ink. My grandmother called them doorway recipes, she explained, her finger tracing symbols hidden in the decorative borders. "Every culture has them, foods that thin the veil between worlds. Most are harmless, bringing luck or love. But some try to bring other things through." I finished, remembering the metallic smell, the strange shadows cast by those innocent-looking candles. "Your son's wish," she said carefully. "Do you remember what he wanted?" I thought back to that day, to Tommy's face scrunched in concentration. "He never told me. Children's wishes aren't supposed to be shared. Sometimes sharing is safer." She turned a page, revealing what looked like a recipe for my son's rocket ship cake. This design, it wasn't random. The stars, the placement, even the number of silver details. They formed a pattern. A pattern for what? A door. She pulled out old photographs of other cakes she'd made, seemingly innocent designs that, when looked at carefully, contained similar hidden configurations. "My family has been baking in this town for 3 generations, guarding against these patterns. When people request them unknowingly, we alter the design slightly, break the sequence." But Tommy's cake. I had no choice. The order came with very specific instructions. When I realized what it was, I tried to warn you. She closed her eyes. But they were watching. They? The ones who placed the order. She pulled out an old order slip. The handwriting was elegant, precise, and exactly matched the writing in the recent newspaper article about the new incident. 20 years, I whispered. They waited 20 years to try again. Because the children lived. She gathered her papers with trembling hands. They weren't supposed to survive. The wish was supposed to complete the exchange. A chill ran down my spine. Exchange? 18 children's lives for 18. She stopped, shaking her head. Some doors should stay closed. The bell above the door chimed again. A man in an expensive suit entered, his shoes clicking on the tile floor. "Mrs. Rodriguez," he smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Still baking, I see." She stiffened. "We're closed." "Oh, I'm out here for cake." He placed a familiar order form on the counter. "I'm here about a very special recipe, one that almost worked 20 years ago." I stood up, positioning myself between him and Mrs. Rodriguez. "Who are you?" "Let's say I'm a collector of rare recipes." His smile widened. "And your son's birthday cake was almost a masterpiece. Such a shame about the candles burning too slowly. Children are so unpredictable with their wishes." "The other incident," I said. "The recent one. That was you. Different baker, same recipe. But again, the timing was off." He sighed. Do you know how rare it is to find 18 pure wishes made at exactly the same moment? Children's birthday parties are perfect. All those young minds focus on one moment, one shared wish. For what? For them to come through. His eyes gleamed. The ones waiting on the other side of your son's wish. So hungry, so eager to trade places. Mrs. Rodriguez grabbed the recipe book, clutching it to her chest. Get out. The book, Mrs. Rodriguez. We can do this the easy way. The sound of a car backfiring made us all jump. Through the window, I saw a familiar face, my son Tommy, now 27, parking his car across the street. The man's smile vanished. Ah, the boy whose wish didn't quite work. How interesting. Tommy entered the bakery, his police badge glinting at his hip. Mom? Everything okay? The man stepped back, adjusting his tie. Just leaving. But we'll talk again, Mrs. Rodriguez. Some recipes are too valuable to stay hidden. He left, the bell chiming mockingly behind him. Mom? Tommy looked confused. What's going on? I looked at Mrs. Rodriguez, at her ancient book of recipes that could open doors between worlds, at the order slip that had almost cost 18 children their lives. We need to talk, I said. About your 7th birthday, about the wish you made. I remember, he said quietly. I wished everyone could stay together forever. I didn't know it would. Attract their attention. Mrs. Rodriguez finished. Wishes for eternal togetherness are powerful. Perfect for opening doors that should stay closed. Tommy touched the badge on his hip. Is that why I became a cop? I've spent 20 years trying to understand what happened that day. And now it's happening again. I said, showing him the newspaper. Different city, same pattern. He studied the article, his detective's eyes catching details I'd missed. The baker who made this cake, she disappeared 3 days ago. Mrs. Rodriguez clutched her book tighter. They're getting bolder. Then we'll be ready, Tommy said, because this time we know what to watch for. Outside, the street lamps flickered as darkness fell. Somewhere in the city, 18 more children were recovering from wishes that almost came true. And in a bakery that had guarded its secrets for 3 generations, we began to plan how to stop it from happening again. Because some recipes weren't meant to be followed, some wishes weren't meant to be granted, and some doors were meant to stay firmly closed. The next 3 months were a blur of late nights and coded recipes. Tommy set up surveillance around Mrs. Rodriguez's bakery while I helped her transfer her grandmother's warnings into a more secure digital format. The man in the suit never returned, but his presence lingered like the aftertaste of bitter almonds. Then the orders started coming in. Look at the patterns, Mrs. Rodriguez said, spreading out 5 different cake requests from 5 different cities. The same design elements, just rearranged, like a key being turned in different locks. Tommy plotted the locations on a map. They're creating a pentagram, each party scheduled exactly 1 week apart. 5 parties, 5 doors, Mrs. Rodriguez whispered. They're not trying to open just one anymore. They're trying to create a gateway. I studied the orders. Each requested 18 children's attendance, specific candle placements, and exact timing for the wishes. We can't stop all 5 parties, Tommy said. We don't have enough people. We don't need to stop the parties. Mrs. Rodriguez opened her book to a page I hadn't seen before. We need to change the recipe. The page showed what looked like a normal birthday cake, but the notes in the margins spoke of protection, of wishes turned back on themselves, of doors that could be sealed forever. A counter recipe, she explained. My grandmother used it once in 1943 when others tried the same thing. But it requires what? The willing sacrifice of a wish that almost worked. She looked at Tommy. Your wish from 20 years ago. The one that kept 18 souls tethered here when they were meant to be exchanged. Tommy touched the scar on his temple. The only physical reminder of that day. What do I need to do? Return to where it happened. Make another wish, but this time to close what you accidentally started to open. The house was sold years ago, I protested. I know the new owners, Tommy said quietly. They've been trying to sell it for years. No one stays long. Kids keep having nightmares about birthday parties. 2 weeks later, we stood in our old backyard. The swing set was gone, the garden overgrown, but the patio where the cake table had stood remained. Mrs. Rodriguez had baked a new cake, simple white frosting, no decorations except for a single candle in the center. Around us, sage burned in copper bowls and salt lined the property boundaries. Remember, she instructed Tommy, when you make your wish, think about closing, not opening. About endings, not beginnings. And the other parties? I asked. Already handled. Tommy smiled grimly. Food safety inspectors are shutting down those bakeries tonight. Anonymous tips about health code violations. It won't stop them forever. No, Mrs. Rodriguez agreed. But it will stop them long enough for this to work. The sun set, casting the same shadows I remembered from 20 years ago. Tommy lit the candle, its flame burning pure and normal, no greenish-blue tint this time. Ready? Mrs. Rodriguez asked. Tommy nodded, closing his eyes. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of sage and something else. That same metallic sweetness from years ago. He blew. The flame didn't go out. Instead, it grew, reaching toward the darkening sky. But this time, instead of children collapsing, the ground itself seemed to shudder. It's working, Mrs. Rodriguez said. The doors, they're closing. The flame turned silver, then white, then exploded in a shower of sparks that hung in the air like frozen stars. Each one twinkled and faded, taking with it the metallic smell until only sage remained. Tommy stumbled, and I caught him. Did it? Yes. Mrs. Rodriguez was already wrapping the remains of the cake in black cloth. The wish doors are sealed. Not forever. Nothing is forever, but long enough. How will we know? She pointed to the sky. Where moments before stars had hung in familiar patterns, new configurations glowed briefly before returning to normal. The patterns are broken. They'll have to find new recipes, new designs. It will take them years. And the book? I asked. Going somewhere safe. She patted her bag. Some recipes need to be forgotten. Later that night, over coffee in Mrs. Rodriguez's kitchen, Tommy finally told us his original wish. I didn't wish for everyone to stay together, he admitted. I wished for the power to protect people. That's why I became a cop. That's why I survived. The wish was already coming true, just not the way they wanted it to. Mrs. Rodriguez smiled. Wishes have their own magic, separate from their recipes. Sometimes they protect us from ourselves. And sometimes, I added, watching my son, not the scared 7-year-old, but a man who had turned an almost tragedy into a life of service. They show us who we're meant to be. Outside, the street lamps cast normal shadows, and the stars followed their usual paths across the sky. Somewhere, a man in an expensive suit was discovering that his carefully planned doors would never open. And in a small bakery that had guarded its secrets for generations, 3 people raised their coffee cups in a silent toast. To wishes that heal instead of harm. To doors that stay closed. And to recipes that would never be baked again. Because sometimes the sweetest endings come from knowing which ingredients to leave out. The morning started like any other Tuesday. My coffee maker gurgled, my toast popped, and my tie refused to cooperate. The only difference was Danny standing in the kitchen doorway at 6:15 a.m., clutching his worn dinosaur plushie, a full 2 hours before he usually woke up. Buddy, what are you doing up so early? He didn't answer, just stared at me with those big brown eyes that suddenly seemed too old for his 6-year-old face. When I reached for my car keys, he moved with unexpected speed, wrapping himself around my leg. Don't go to work today, Dad. Please. I tried to gently pry him loose. Come on, champ. Daddy has an important meeting. No. His grip tightened. You can't drive today. You can't. Sarah, my wife, appeared in her bathrobe, looking concerned. Danny, what's wrong? Dad can't drive today, he repeated, his voice breaking. The road breaks. I saw it. I saw it in the dark place. Sarah and I exchanged worried glances. Danny had been having nightmares recently, but nothing that had affected him like this. The dark place? I knelt to his level. What dark place? Where the other kids are. They showed me. The road breaks and people fall into the dark. Tears streamed down his face. Please, Daddy, don't drive. Sarah pulled him into her arms. It was just a bad dream, sweetie. Daddy will be fine. But Danny wouldn't stop crying. When I tried to leave, he became hysterical, screaming about the dark place and the other children. It was so unlike him that I found myself wavering. Maybe I could work from home today, I suggested. Sarah nodded, relief crossing her face. I'll call your office. Danny, honey, would that make you feel better? He nodded, hiccuping through his tears. "Promise you won't drive. All day?" "I promise, buddy." He finally let go of my leg but insisted on watching me unplug my car keys from the charger and place them in a drawer. Only then did he allow Sarah to lead him back to bed. "That was intense," she whispered when she returned. "Should we call Dr. Matthews?" I was about to agree when my phone buzzed. A text from my colleague Marcus read, "You watching the news? Major accident on Highway 23. Traffic's at a standstill." I flipped on the TV. The local news was showing aerial footage of a massive traffic jam. Nothing unusual for Tuesday morning, except breaking news, the anchor announced. "We're getting reports of structural concerns on Highway 23 near exit 47. Engineers have been called to inspect." The camera zoomed in on a series of massive cracks spreading across the elevated section. Even as we watched, the cracks widened. "They're evacuating vehicles now," the anchor continued. "All traffic is being..." Wait. Oh my God. Live on air. The elevated section collapsed. Cars that hadn't been evacuated in time tumbled into the darkness below. The camera jerked away, but not before capturing the horror. My coffee mug slipped from my numb fingers, shattering on the kitchen floor. That was my route to work. I would have been there, right there, at exactly that time. Phones started ringing. Sarah's, then mine, then the landline. Friends and family were checking if I was okay, if I had been on the highway. Through it all, I could only think of Danny's words. "The road breaks and people fall into the dark." I ran to his room. He was sitting up in bed, staring at the wall. "Danny, how did you know?" "The other kids told me." He turned those two old eyes toward me. "They see things in the dark place. Bad things that are going to happen." "What other kids?" "The ones who got taken. They want to help, but the dark place only lets them show kids like me. Grown-ups can't see." A chill ran down my spine. "Taken? What do you mean, taken?" But he had already curled up under his dinosaur blanket, pretending to sleep. The death toll from the highway collapse reached 17. The news called it a structural failure, blaming poor maintenance and budget cuts, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. That night I couldn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., I heard Danny talking in his room. I crept to his door and listened. I told him, he whispered to the darkness. "I stopped him like you said. But what about the others? There's too many to warn." Silence. Then, "I know it hurts in the dark place. I want to help them too. But how?" I pushed the door open. Danny was alone, sitting cross-legged on his bed. "Who were you talking to, buddy?" He looked up, unsurprised to see me. "The missing kids. They're trying to warn everyone, but most grown-ups don't listen to children." "What missing kids?" He pointed to his wall. I hadn't noticed earlier, but he'd pinned up newspaper clippings, missing children posters, some recent, some yellowed with age, all local. "Where did you get these?" They showed me where to find them. "In the library's old papers. They've been trying to warn people for a long time, Dad. But the dark place only lets them talk to kids like me." I sat on his bed, my mind reeling. "Danny, you're scaring me." "I know." He crawled into my lap like he used to when he was smaller. "They're scared too, but they say more bad things are coming. Big bad things, and they need our help to stop them." "Who needs our help?" He shook his head. "Can't tell you yet. But tomorrow another kid like me is going to try to warn their daddy about the train. We have to help them, Dad. We have to make the grown-ups listen." I held him close, feeling his small heart beat against my chest. Outside, a train whistle sounded in the distance and Danny began to cry. Because somewhere in the city, another child was waking from a nightmare about trains. Another parent would have to choose whether to listen. And in what Danny called the dark place, the missing children were trying desperately to prevent tragedies only they could see coming. The next morning's newspaper headline read, "Massive train derailment avoided. Anonymous tip credited." The article detailed how an emergency inspection prompted by an anonymous caller had discovered critical track damage that would have caused a catastrophic accident. I knew it hadn't been anonymous. Somewhere, a child like Danny had managed to convince someone to listen. 7, Danny said at breakfast, pushing his untouched cereal around the bowl. 7 what, honey? Sarah asked. 7 kids like me in the city now. The others showed me. We're all connected to the dark place. Sarah shot me a worried look. We'd spent hours on the phone with Dr. Matthews yesterday, trying to make sense of Danny's predictions. The child psychologist had suggested anxiety, stress, perhaps an unusual form of precognition. But nothing explained the newspaper clippings, the specific details, or the other children. "Danny," I said carefully, "can you tell us more about these other kids?" He drew a circle in his milk with his spoon. "They're like me. They can see what's coming. The missing kids show us. And the missing kids, Sarah Press, they're in this dark place. Not just kids." Danny's voice dropped to a whisper. "Bad people put them there, under the city, in the old tunnels where the trains used to go. That's why they know about the trains. They hear them up above." My blood ran cold. The abandoned subway tunnels hadn't been mentioned in any of our conversations before. "How do you know about the old tunnels, buddy?" "They showed me, in my dreams. They're trapped down there, but they can reach out to kids like me. Show us things." He looked up, eyes brimming with tears. "They're trying to stop it from happening again." "Stop what?" "The bad people. They're going to take more kids. Soon. That's why the missing ones are warning us. They don't want anyone else in the dark place." My phone buzzed. A text from Detective Rivera, an old college friend I contacted about Danny's predictions. "Need to talk. Can you come in today?" I showed Sarah the message. She nodded. "I'll stay with Danny." "Go." At the police station, Rivera looked like he hadn't slept. His desk was covered in old case files. "Your son," he said without preamble, "mentioned abandoned subway tunnels." "Yes, this morning." "Why?" He spread out several missing person reports. "In the past 40 years, 23 children have disappeared in this city. No bodies, no traces. The only connection we never made public, they all vanished within 3 blocks of old subway entrances." My hands shook as I looked at the photos. Young faces smiled up at me, frozen in time. "There's more," Rivera continued. "Every few years, right before a new wave of disappearances, there were reports of children having nightmares, warning their parents about specific accidents or incidents, just like your son with the highway." "How many kids are having these dreams now?" 7. He met my eyes. "Just like Danny said." "The missing kids," I whispered. "They're trying to warn us through our children." "Maybe, or maybe someone's trying to stop whatever happened to them from happening again." He pulled out a map marked with red dots. "These are where the children disappeared. These," he added blue dots, "are where the 7 children currently reporting dreams live." The dots formed a pattern, a circle with one point still unmarked. "They're surrounding something," I realized. "The old Central Station, abandoned in 1982. And according to city plans, it connects to a network of maintenance tunnels that were never properly sealed." My phone rang. It was Sarah. "Danny's gone," she sobbed. "He left a note. It says he's going to help the others, that they showed him the way to the dark place." Rivera was already grabbing his coat. "The Central Station. That's where they'll take him." "They? Who's they?" "According to these files, every 40 years, children start having dreams, warning about accidents, drawing attention away from what's really happening." He checked his gun. "While everyone's distracted by prevented disasters, other children disappear." "But Danny, he helped save people." "Yes, and that's exactly what they wanted. Build credibility, make people believe the dreams, then use that trust to lure the children who can see them." I finished, horror dawning. We raced to the old Central Station. The entrance was chained, but fresh marks showed where the chains had been recently moved. "Wait for backup," Rivera warned. But I could hear Danny's voice echoing from below, talking to someone or something. "I came like you asked," he was saying. "I helped stop the accidents. Now please, let the others go." A deeper voice answered, human, but wrong somehow. Such a clever boy. "Just like the others were. Don't worry, you'll see them soon. In the dark place." I didn't wait for backup. I ran down the stairs, Rivera cursing behind me. The tunnel stretched ahead, Danny's voice growing fainter. "Because sometimes the real monsters aren't in the dark place. They're the ones who create it." And my son was walking right into their trap. The tunnels branched like veins beneath the city, each turn taking us deeper into darkness. Rivera's flashlight beam caught decades of graffiti on the walls, and something else. Children's drawings, etched into the concrete. Warning signs, I realized, left by those who came before. "Danny," I called, my voice echoing. Dad? His reply came from everywhere and nowhere. Dad, don't. They want you to follow. Rivera grabbed my arm. Listen, he whispered. Beyond Danny's voice, there was something else. A humming, like electricity, but deeper, more mechanical. Beneath that, the faintest sound of children singing. This way, Rivera said, pointing to fresh scuff marks on the ground. We followed them to a maintenance store, half hidden behind old equipment. It was warm to the touch. The power readings, Rivera muttered. All these years they've been drawing massive amounts of electricity down here. Everyone assumed it was measurement error. The door opened onto a corridor that shouldn't exist. Modern LED lights buzzed overhead. The walls were clean, new. And at the end, my God, Rivera breathed. Screens covered an entire wall. Each showed a different traffic camera, emergency service channel, or news feed. A command center monitoring the city above. They're watching, I realized, using the children's warnings to study how people react, learning patterns. Dad. Danny's voice crackled through an intercom. They're not just watching, they're learning, teaching their machine. What machine, buddy? Where are you? The dark place isn't dark anymore. It's full of lights and numbers. So many numbers. A slow clap echoed behind us. A man in a lab coat emerged from the shadows, flanked by others in surgical masks. Fascinating, isn't it? He smiled. Children's precognitive abilities, properly harnessed, create the perfect predictive model. Each generation gets stronger, more accurate. Where's my son? Joining the others, helping us perfect the algorithm. He gestured to the screens. 40 years of data. 40 years of children's warnings, teaching our AI how to see the future. And now, with 7 new inputs. They're not inputs, Rivera growled. They're kids. They're the next step in human evolution. Their brains interface naturally with our system. The perfect organic processors. A scream echoed through the corridors. Danny's scream. I ran. Rivera's shouts and gunshots faded behind me as I followed my son's voice to another room. It was filled with pods, like MRI machines but smaller, child-sized. Danny was strapped to a gurney, fighting as they tried to load him in. The others, he cried when he saw me. Dad, they're still alive. All of them. The machine keeps them dreaming, using their nightmares to predict disasters. But it's killing them. I tackled the nearest technician. Rivera burst in, gun raised. Police, everyone down. But the man in the lab coat just smiled. Too late. The connection's already established. All 7 children are linked now. The dark place is complete. The pods hum to life. Inside each one, screens flickered with data streams. Behind the numbers, I saw faces, the missing children, aged but alive, trapped in an endless dream. Danny, I reached for his hand. Hold on, buddy. It's okay, Dad. His eyes were unfocused now, seeing something we couldn't. I can feel them. All of them. They're showing me how to break it. Break what? The machine. It needs all of us to work. But if one of us refuses to dream, his eyes rolled back. The lights flickered. Alarms blared. No. The man in the lab coat shouted, running to a console. He's corrupting the data stream. Stop him. But Danny wasn't alone. Through the machine, through the dark place they created, 23 missing children joined their power with the 7 new ones. 3 generations of stolen dreamers, fighting back. The screens exploded in cascades of sparks. The pods opened with hydraulic kisses. In each one, children who hadn't aged a day began to wake up. The algorithm, the man wailed. 40 years of work. You forgot something, Danny said weakly as I unstrapped him. Dreams aren't just about seeing the future. They're about hope. And you can't trap hope in a machine. Rivera's backup finally arrived, flooding the facility with tactical teams. They found 40 years of evidence, children used as processors in a twisted attempt to create the ultimate predictive AI. But they never found the dark place. When the machine broke, it took that nightmare realm with it. Later, Danny told us he still dreams sometimes of the other children. Not warnings anymore, just normal dreams of kids finally free to wake up. And somewhere in the city's records, there's a file marked Project Oracle that no one can open, because some futures shouldn't be predicted. Sometimes the best warnings are the ones that teach us to change what's coming. And sometimes the darkest places only exist until someone is brave enough to break them. The maitre d' at La Blanc hesitated when I gave my name. His eyes darted between my simple black dress and the exclusive restaurant's crystal chandeliers, clearly questioning whether I belonged. Park. Reservation for 8. I repeated softly, maintaining eye contact. Ah, yes. The Harrison party mentioned there. Guest would be early. His pause spoke volumes. I'd heard that tone for 30 years since arriving in America. The one that suggested my accent made me less than welcome. I followed him past tables of Manhattan's elite, feeling their subtle glances. At 55, I'd grown used to being underestimated. My silver streak hair was styled simply, my jewelry minimal except for a single jade pendant, my mother's last gift before I left Korea. The pendant had seen me through night school, through building my company from nothing, through raising my son David alone after his father passed. The Harrison family was already seated, Richard and Elizabeth Harrison, their daughter Amanda, and her fiancé, my son David. 2 other couples I didn't recognize completed the party. David stood immediately, his smile warming my heart even as I noticed the slight tension in his posture. "Mom, you're here." He hugged me, whispering, "I'm sorry in advance." Elizabeth Harrison's perfectly lipstick smile didn't reach her eyes. "Mrs. Park, how nice of you to join us. We weren't sure you'd be comfortable in such a formal setting." "Please call me Sarah." I took my seat, noting how they placed me at the far end, nearly separated from the main group. "Sarah," Richard Harrison repeated, exaggerating each syllable as if speaking to a child. "Tell us again what it is you do." David mentioned something about banking. "Financial services," David interjected quickly. "Mom runs." "Oh, like one of those little cash advance places." Elizabeth's friend tittered. "How entrepreneurial." I caught David's hand under the table as he started to speak. This wasn't the first time I handled such situations. "Something like that," I said serenely. The waiter arrived with wine menus. Richard waved his hand dismissively in my direction. "Perhaps something simple for Mrs. Park. Does this place serve steak?" "Actually," I began, but Elizabeth spoke over me. "Richard, darling, remember what Amanda said about her background. They'd probably prefer soju." She turned to her friends. "It's this ethnic drink, quite crude really." I watched my son's knuckles whiten around his water glass. Sweet boy, always ready to defend his mother. But I taught him patience, taught him that timing was everything, in business and in life. Speaking of background, Amanda's friend Melissa leaned forward, pearl necklace glinting. "We simply must discuss the wedding." "Amanda, darling, are you sure you want everyone giving toasts?" Some accents can be so hard to understand. "Mom's English is perfect," David snapped. "She has 2 master's degrees and—" "David, sweetheart," Elizabeth cut in. "No one's questioning your mother's achievements. We just want the wedding to be perfect." Perhaps she'd be more comfortable watching from the family table? No pressure to speak. The waiter returned with the wine list. Richard reached for it, but I had already picked it up, scanning the selections with practiced ease. "The 2005 Chateau Margaux," I said to the sommelier. "2 bottles, please." Richard's eyebrows shot up. "Now see here, that's a $2,000 bottle." "4 bottles," I amended smoothly. "We're celebrating, aren't we?" Elizabeth's laugh was sharp. "Mrs. Park, please don't feel obligated to. I mean, we wouldn't want you to overextend yourself." I simply smiled, remembering the mortgage documents for their penthouse that had crossed my desk last week. The ones they'd refinanced through a subsidiary of my company, desperate to maintain their lifestyle after Richard's hedge fund took a hit. "Mom," David whispered, "you don't have to." "The caviar service for the table as well," I told the waiter, enjoying Elizabeth's growing discomfort. "And perhaps Mrs. Harrison would like to hear about my recent acquisition of the Sterling Financial Group." Richard's fork clattered against his plate. "Sterling? That's impossible. They're our mortgage holder. The CEO is Sarah Park," I finished softly. "Would you like me to say it more slowly? Perhaps with a stronger accent?" The silence that fell over the table was delicious. Elizabeth's face had gone pale beneath her expensive foundation. Richard's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. But you said," Amanda stammered. "That I work in financial services." "I do." I sipped my water. I also own the building you live in, the summer house you're struggling to keep, and as of last month, the bank holding your underwater mortgages on both. David was trying not to smile now. My son, who'd watched me build an empire from nothing, who'd understood why I let people underestimate me all these years. Now then, I continued as the wildly expensive wine was poured. Shall we discuss the wedding? I believe you had some concerns about my ability to give a proper toast. The rest of the dinner passed in a fog of shocked silence punctuated by Elizabeth's nervous attempts at recovery. But I wasn't done yet. This was just the appetizer. The main course would be served at tomorrow's engagement party in the hotel I'd acquired specifically for this purpose. After all, I hadn't built a multi-billion-dollar empire by revealing all my cards at once. The morning of the engagement party, I sat in my penthouse office reviewing the Harrisons' complete financial portfolio. Their desperation to maintain social status had left quite a paper trail. Mortgages, loans, credit lines, all stretched to the breaking point. Pride, I learned, was expensive to maintain. My phone buzzed. A text from David. They're trying to change the venue last minute. Mom, what did you do? I smiled, remembering Elizabeth's face when she'd arrived at the Grand Plaza Hotel that morning to finalize the arrangements, only to find her preferred vendor contracts canceled and her usual event planner mysteriously unavailable. Just wait, I texted back. The Harrison family had built their reputation on old money and social connections, but real power, as I'd learned over 3 decades of building my empire, wasn't about who you knew, it was about what you owned. At precisely 2 p.m., my assistant announced Elizabeth Harrison's arrival. Mrs. Park, Elizabeth swept in, her designer suit unable to hide her nervous energy. We need to discuss this venue situation. Sarah, please, I gestured to a chair. And what situation would that be? The hotel claims our usual arrangements have been canceled. There must be some mistake. We've held events there for 20 years. Ah yes, I said, reviewing a document on my desk. Under the previous ownership, but management changes, as do policies. Elizabeth's perfectly manicured hands clenched her purse. Surely you understand, given your background, the importance of maintaining certain standards. My background. I raised an eyebrow. You mean as the owner of the Grand Plaza Hotel chain? The color drained from her face. What? I acquired it last month, along with several other properties your family frequents. The country club, for instance. I believe your membership is up for review. You can't? Actually, I can. Just as I can review those creative accounting methods Richard's been using to maintain your lifestyle. Interesting reading, by the way. Elizabeth stood abruptly. Are you threatening us? Not at all. I'm offering you a choice. I slid a folder across the desk. Inside are 2 documents. One is a complete audit of your family's financial dealings, ready to be submitted to the SEC. The other is a contract for the engagement party at my hotel, under my terms. Why are you doing this? I thought of every smirk, every mocking imitation of my accent, every time they'd made my son apologize for his embarrassing mother. Because you need a lesson in humility. The party stays at my hotel. You'll personally greet every service staff member, the ones you usually ignore. And when you announce Amanda and David's engagement, you'll do it in both English and Korean. Korean? But I don't. I've included a phonetic script. Practice your accent carefully. We wouldn't want you to embarrass yourself. Elizabeth's hands shook as she took the contract. And if we refuse? Then tomorrow's society pages will feature a very interesting story about the Harrisons' financial house of cards. Your choice. After she left, David called. Mom, the in-laws just called Amanda in tears. What happened? Just ensuring everyone feels included in the celebrations. You're terrifying, you know that? I learned from the best, people like them, who taught me that power isn't about how loudly you speak, but about when you choose to speak up. The engagement party that evening was a masterpiece of subtle revenge. Elizabeth, perfectly coiffed but visibly nervous, greeted busboys and waiters by name. Richard, usually holding court with his social circle, stood quietly by the bar, jumping every time I walked past. But the real satisfaction came during the announcements. Elizabeth Harrison, queen of Manhattan's social scene, carefully reading Korean phrases of welcome. Her usual confidence shattered as she stumbled over each syllable. How does it feel? I whispered as she finished. To worry about your accent being judged. Amanda, who'd been watching the evening unfold with growing understanding, approached me at the dessert service. "Mrs. Park, I mean Sarah," she hesitated. "I want to apologize for everything. I never realized." "What?" "That the immigrant you mocked built herself into something bigger than your family's fading fortune." "No," she looked down. "That we were the ones who should have been embarrassed. Not you." I study my future daughter-in-law, seeing perhaps the first crack in her entitled worldview. "Interesting. And what do you plan to do with that realization?" "Learn," she said quietly, "starting with Korean if you'll teach me. I want to understand David's heritage, your story." "Well," I smiled. "That's a start." 6 months later, I sat in my office reviewing the changes the Harrison family had undergone. Like any good investment, social rehabilitation required careful monitoring. Elizabeth and Richard had downsized to a more modest apartment, one they could actually afford. Their social circle had shifted, especially after the mysterious leak about their financial manipulations forced Richard to step down from several prestigious boards. But it was Amanda who had surprised me most. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Amanda entered, no longer wearing the designer labels that had once defined her. She carried a stack of financial reports, part of her new internship at my company. "Sarah, I finished analyzing those mortgage applications you gave me." I gestured for her to sit. "And 3 of them are from families like mine, living beyond their means to maintain social status. I flagged them for review." She paused. "I also noticed they all serve on the hospital board with my mother." "Interesting observation. And what would you have done in my position 6 months ago?" "Exploited their weakness, used it for social leverage." She met my eyes. "But that's not why you gave me these files, is it?" I smiled. My future daughter-in-law was learning. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying people like your parents. It's teaching them to be better. "Like you did with me." There was no bitterness in her voice, only understanding. "You chose to learn. That's the difference." The wedding was approaching, and with it came another test. Elizabeth had requested a meeting to discuss the arrangements. She arrived on time, humbled but not broken, exactly as I'd intended. "Sarah," she said, her pronunciation careful, respectful. "We've been thinking about the wedding traditions." "Oh." "Amanda would like to incorporate Korean customs to honor David's heritage, but she swallowed her pride, "we need your help to do it properly." I studied her face, remembering the woman who had mocked my accent just months ago. "And you're comfortable with that? Having your society friends watch you participate in ethnic traditions?" "I deserve that," she admitted. "But yes, it's time we showed people what really matters." The wedding planning became an unexpected bridge. Elizabeth learned to pronounce Korean terms without mockery. Richard, stripped of his financial pretensions, revealed a decent man beneath the arrogance. And Amanda. "Mom?" David entered my office one evening, finding me reviewing wedding details. "You did all this on purpose, didn't you? Not just teaching them a lesson, but showing them a better way." "The best investments," I told my son, "are in people's potential to change." The wedding day arrived, a beautiful blend of cultures. Amanda, stunning in both a white gown and a traditional hanbok, insisted on greeting guests in Korean. Elizabeth, her designer tastes tempered by humility, worked alongside my event staff instead of ordering them around. During the reception, I overheard Richard telling his country club friends, "My daughter didn't just marry into a successful family, she married into one that taught us the true meaning of class." Later, Amanda found me watching the celebrations. "Thank you," she said softly, "for not just destroying us when you could have. For showing me what real strength looks like." I touched the jade pendant at my neck, thinking of my own journey. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving to yourself what's right. As the evening wound down, David and Amanda departed for their honeymoon. Elizabeth approached me with a small gift. "It's not jade," she said, handing me a simple box, "but I hoped it could be a start." Inside was a delicate silver necklace with 2 intertwined circles. "For our families," she explained. "Different, but connected now." I clasped it alongside my mother's jade, symbols of 2 journeys, one that had taught me to build power, and one that had taught me to use it wisely. "You know," I told Elizabeth, "there's an old Korean saying, after a storm, the earth becomes harder. Perhaps the same is true of people." She smiled, finally understanding. "And families, especially families, Looking out over the celebration, my son and his bride, the humbled but healing Harrisons, the merged cultures and learned respect, I realized that sometimes the greatest power isn't in arming someone's mortgage. It's in arming the moment when they finally see themselves clearly. The quilt lay in the pristine white garbage bin, its hand-stitched edges peeking out beneath designer wrapping paper and expensive ribbons. 6 months of work, countless memories woven into every square, tossed away like yesterday's newspaper. "Mom, I'm so sorry," my son Michael whispered, his face flushed with embarrassment as his wife, Victoria, continued opening gifts at her lavish baby shower. "Oh my God, it's the limited edition Gucci baby carrier," Victoria squealed, holding up her next present. "This is what proper gifts look like, everyone. No offense, Margaret," she smirked in my direction, "but we're giving our daughter the very best. Not crafts." I stayed silent, my fingers running over the calluses I developed while sewing that quilt. Each patch told a story: a square from James's favorite blue shirt before cancer took him, a piece from Michael's first Halloween costume, the corner of the blanket my grandmother had brought from Italy. 3 generations of love discarded without a second thought. "Look what Daddy sent." Victoria held up a gold-plated baby rattle. "Now this is traditional." I watched my son shift uncomfortably in his seat. Michael had changed since marrying Victoria Thompson, daughter of real estate mogul Harrison Thompson. Gone was the boy who'd helped me run our small bookstore after his father died, replaced by someone who wore designer suits and avoided mentioning our middle-class background. "The nursery is being featured in Luxury Living magazine," Victoria announced to her equally wealthy friends. "Everything's being imported from Paris. We simply can't have anything homemade, ruining the aesthetic." My phone buzzed, an email from my investment manager about the Thompson Real Estate Group's latest acquisition attempt. Victoria's father had been trying to buy the historic Carter building for months, not knowing the anonymous owner who kept refusing was sitting right here, watching his daughter throw away a family heirloom. "Margaret, dear," Victoria's mother, Diana, touched my arm with perfectly manicured fingers. "Don't feel bad. Not everyone understands our standards. Perhaps for the next gift, you could just contribute to their house fund? Even a small amount would be something." I smiled politely, thinking of the $2 million I'd secretly set aside for Michael and Victoria's dream house down payment. The house they'd spent months choosing, the one they told everyone was being funded by Victoria's trust fund. "The closing's next week, isn't it?" I asked quietly. "Yes, finally. Daddy's so generous with Victoria's trust fund," Diana bragged. "Though between us, the market's been tough lately. Even Harrison had to leverage some properties to make it work." I knew. I'd seen the desperate loan applications his company had been floating. Applications rejected by banks that happened to be my major investment partners. The party continued, a parade of expensive gifts and subtle digs at anything deemed less than luxury. I watched Victoria dump my coat back in the trash when she thought I wasn't looking, then whisper something to Michael that made him nod apologetically in my direction. That evening, in my home office overlooking the city, I made 2 calls. The first was to my investment manager. "Cancel the down payment transfer," I instructed, "and proceed with the Carter building acquisition. Tell Mr. Thompson his last offer is rejected." The second call was to Michael. "Mom, about today," he started. "The quote was your father's idea," I interrupted softly. "Before he died, he asked me to make it for his first grandchild. He saved those clothes specifically for this." Silence on the line. I didn't know. "There's a lot you don't know anymore, Michael. Like how that bookstore you're now embarrassed to mention put you through college, or how your father and I built everything we have from nothing. Victoria just has certain expectations." "Yes, she does. Speaking of which, you might want to call her father. I hear he's having some financial difficulties, especially with that house down payment he promised you." "What? Mom, what did you do?" "Nothing yet. But it's interesting how quickly people forget where they came from, isn't it? How easily they throw away things that don't fit their aesthetic." "Mom, you have until tomorrow to get that quilt out of the trash, Michael. After that, well, Victoria might learn some interesting things about where that house money was really coming from." I hung up, touching the photo on my desk. James and me in front of our first bookstore, Michael on his father's shoulders, all of us beaming with pride over our simple success. The next morning, my security cameras showed Michael sneaking into the Thompson mansion's garbage area at dawn. An hour later, he sent me a photo of the quilt carefully cleaned and folded. "I'm sorry," his text read. "Dad would be ashamed of me." Yes, I typed back. He would be. But this wasn't just about the quilt anymore. It was about teaching my son and his wife that true value isn't measured in designer labels. And I was just getting started. The following week, I sat in my office at Thompson Tower, a building I quietly acquired through one of my holding companies 6 months ago. Victoria's father, Harrison, didn't know his largest tenant was also his new landlord. He was about to find out. My assistant buzzed. "Mr. Thompson is here for the meeting about his lease renewal. Send him in." I turned my chair toward the window, letting him enter to an apparently empty desk. I must be in the wrong. Harrison's voice trailed off as I swiveled around. "Margaret? What are you doing here?" "Reviewing your lease application." I gestured to the chair. "Please sit." His face shifted between confusion and emerging horror. You own Sterling Properties. Among other things, including the Carter building you've been trying to acquire." I smiled. "And, of course, your daughter's trust fund management firm." Harrison's expensive suit suddenly seemed to fit him less comfortably. "That's impossible. The trust is managed by a subsidiary of my company. Amazing what you can build from a simple bookstore, isn't it?" I slid several papers across the desk. These make for interesting reading, especially the part about Victoria's depleted trust fund. Color drained from his face. "How did you know that you've been lying to my son about the house down payment? That Victoria's trust fund was empty years ago on shopping sprees and failed business ventures?" I leaned forward. "I make it my business to know where my money is going, or in this case, not going." "Look, Margaret, surely we can. It's Mrs. Park in this office." I cut him off. "Now, about that lease renewal. Your rates are doubling." "That's outrageous. You can't." "I can, just like I can call in the loans on your other properties. The ones you've been using as collateral for that house you promised my son." Harrison slumped in his chair. "What do you want?" "First, you'll tell Victoria and Michael the truth about the trust fund. All of it. It'll destroy her reputation." "Second," I continued, ignoring his protests, "you'll return everything Victoria bought with embezzled company funds, including that Gucci baby carrier she was so proud of. Please, they're expecting to move into that house next month." I pushed a final document across the desk. "This is a new lease agreement. Sign it, and I'll consider providing the down payment myself. Under certain conditions." "What conditions?" "The quilt goes in the nursery. Victoria publicly apologizes for her behavior. And you all attend weekly family dinners at my embarrassing little house. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Almost as much as your daughter enjoyed throwing away my grandson's inheritance." I stood up. "You have until tomorrow to decide." That evening, Michael called. "Mom, something weird is happening. Victoria's dad just insisted we come over. He seems scared." "Really? How interesting." "Mom, what did you do?" "Let's just say some people need to learn the value of things that can't be bought in a store." The next day, Victoria and Michael arrived at my house unannounced. Victoria's designer outfit was gone, replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. Her eyes were red from crying. "Why didn't you tell us?" she demanded. "All this time, letting us think you were just what?" "A simple bookstore owner. Someone not worth your respect." "Daddy told us everything. The companies, the properties, the trust fund. How you could have destroyed us, but instead, I'm offering you a chance to remember what really matters." I picked up the quote from my sewing table. "Your daughter's history isn't in some magazine spread. It's in these stitches, these memories, this family you've been so eager to distance yourself from." Victoria touched the quilt gently, fingers tracing the pattern. "This piece. Michael said it was from his father's shirt. The one he wore the day we opened the bookstore. Everything we built started from that moment. Not from trust funds or designer labels, but from hard work and love." "I've been horrible," she whispered. "To you, to these memories." "Yes, you have. I didn't soften the truth. But you can do better. Starting with this little one." I placed a hand on her pregnant belly. "She deserves to know all her family's stories, not just the ones that look good on social media." Michael wrapped an arm around his wife. "The house will be yours, under my conditions. starting with dinner. Tonight, I'm making lasagna from your grandmother's recipe. The one with the cheap cheese Victoria refused to eat at Christmas. Michael smiled. Victoria blushed. I'd like to learn the recipe, if you'll teach me. Well, I picked up my cooking apron, the worn one Victoria had once called embarrassing. That's a start. 3 months later, I stood in the doorway of my granddaughter Emma's nursery, watching Victoria carefully adjust the handmade quilt in the antique wooden crib, the same one Michael had slept in. The designer items were gone, replaced by a warmth no magazine spread could capture. Victoria had insisted on hanging photos of the family bookstore, including one of James reading to a young Michael. Next to it, a new picture showed me teaching Victoria how to make pasta from scratch, both of us covered in flour and laughing. The reporter from Luxury Living called again, Victoria said, turning to me. I told them we're going with a different kind of aesthetic, one that tells our family's story. I smiled, remembering how that same woman had once thrown away a handmade gift for not being prestigious enough. Dad's furious about losing the Carter Building deal, she continued. But he's actually showing up for family dinners now. Yesterday he asked for the recipe for your meatballs. Humility looks good on Harrison, I said, adjusting a blanket, almost as good as that apron he wore while doing dishes last week. The sound of the front door opening interrupted us. Michael walked in, carrying a familiar paper bag from our old bookstore. Look what I found while cleaning out the store office, he said, pulling out a dusty children's book. Dad used to read this to me every night. Victoria took the worn copy of The Little Engine that could reverently. For Emma? For all of us, I said softly, a reminder that what matters isn't how shiny the engine is, but the heart that keeps it running. We'd kept the bookstore, but with changes. Victoria now ran a weekly reading program for local kids, teaching them that stories matter more than status. Harrison had even donated his country club membership fees to fund free books for underprivileged children. The trust fund kids at the hospital were shocked when I told them I take the subway to work now. Victoria laughed. But you know what? I had the best conversation with our janitor about his daughter's college dreams. We're setting up a scholarship fund. Michael squeezed her hand. Remember when you thought Mom's financial advice was too simple? Now I have CEOs asking me how my mother-in-law built her empire from a bookstore. Victoria shook her head. The same people who used to mock her accent at parties. I touched the quilt one last time, feeling the memories in every stitch. Success isn't about what you have, I told them. It's about what you build, not just buildings and businesses, but bridges between people. Emma would grow up knowing both worlds, the power of wealth and the richness of simplicity. She'd learned that true luxury isn't in brand names, but in the warmth of family stories told around a dinner table. Speaking of building, Victoria smiled. Dad asked if you consider a small investment in his new community development project. Affordable housing, if you can believe it. Tell him to bring the proposal to Sunday dinner, I replied, along with that tiramisu he's been practicing. As I left the nursery that evening, I heard Victoria reading The Little Engine That Could to her belly, her voice gentle with newfound understanding. The designer bags in her closet were gathering dust, replaced by a well-worn cooking apron and flour-covered recipe cards. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what people value, it's teaching them to value what truly matters. In the end, that's the greatest power of all. The sound of the slab echoed through the reception hall, silencing the string quartet and freezing every guest mid-conversation. My cheek burned as I stared at my sister, Amanda, her perfectly manicured hands still raised, her face contorted with rage. How dare you invite that homewrecker to my niece's wedding? She screamed, mascara-stained tears streaming down her face as she pointed at David's new wife, Sarah, who stood mortified near the champagne fountain. My daughter Emily rushed to my side, her white wedding dress rustling. Aunt Amanda, stop it. I invited them. Sarah's been nothing but kind to me. Kind. Amanda laughed bitterly. Was she being kind when she stole my husband? When she took my life away? I touched my stinging cheek, thinking of the monthly transfers I'd been making to Amanda's so-called inheritance account. 5 years of silently supporting her after her divorce, watching her build her supposed self-made empire while she belittled everyone around her. Your life? I said quietly. You mean a life you've been bragging about building from scratch? Amanda's eyes narrowed. Don't you dare. I worked for everything I have. Did you work for the penthouse on Fifth Avenue? I asked, my voice carrying across the now silent room. Or the summer house in the Hamptons? How about that luxury spa chain you built from nothing? I earned every penny, she hissed, but I saw the first flicker of fear in her eyes. Mom? Emily touched my arm. What are you talking about? I reached into my evening bag and pulled out a folder I brought for exactly this moment. Your Aunt Amanda loves telling everyone how she recovered from her divorce through hard work and determination. How she never took a penny from David or anyone else. David, standing protectively in front of Sarah, looked confused. Amanda refused any settlement. She said she'd rather die than take my blood money. Because she didn't need it, I said, opening the folder. She had a guardian angel, or should I say, a silent benefactor. Amanda's face went pale. Catherine, don't. 5 years ago, Amanda started receiving monthly deposits from a trust fund. Large deposits, enough to buy that first spa location she claimed she earned through smart investments. The wedding guests murmured. Amanda had become something of a celebrity in our social circle, frequently featured in magazines as the ultimate comeback story, the wronged wife who rebuilt her life through sheer determination. The trust fund was anonymous. I continued, watching my sister's carefully constructed facade crumble. Set up through a complex network of offshore accounts, Amanda told everyone it was an inheritance from our great aunt in Europe. We don't have a great aunt in Europe, Emily said slowly. No, we don't. I pulled out the bank statements, but we do have someone who's been managing the Park Family Investment Fund for the past decade. Someone who watched their little sister spiral into bitterness and hatred after her divorce. Amanda's designer clutch fell to the floor. It was you? Every penny. The initial capital for your spa chain, the down payment for your penthouse, the lucky stock tips you bragged about. All from me. But why? Because you're my sister. Because 5 years ago you were broken and desperate, and I couldn't bear to watch you suffer. I picked up her fallen clutch. But I never expected you to turn into this. Someone who would slap her sister at her own daughter's wedding for showing basic kindness to others. The room was so quiet you could hear the ice melting in the champagne glasses. David stepped forward, Sarah's hand in his. All those interviews you gave, he said, about building everything yourself, about never taking handouts. Were lies, I finished, just like her social media posts about manifesting success and selling her expensive mentoring programs to desperate divorced women. Amanda sank into a nearby chair, her designer dress crumpling. You'll destroy everything I've built. You mean everything I built? I corrected. The empire you've been using to make others feel small. To reject and humiliate anyone who doesn't meet your standards. Emily, my beautiful bride, took my hand. Mom, all those times Aunt Amanda criticized your simple lifestyle, your modest house. While living off my investments? Yes, I smiled sadly. Ironic, isn't it? Amanda stood suddenly, grabbing her purse. This is my niece's wedding. I won't let you turn it into a circus. Actually, I pulled out one final document as the main investor in your spa chain. I'm calling an emergency board meeting Monday morning. We'll discuss your position as CEO, especially given these allegations of fraudulent marketing. You wouldn't dare. Try me. Oh, and Amanda. I touched my still red cheek. That slap just cost you the Hamptons house. I'm canceling the trust payments. As Amanda stormed out, her designer heels clicking on the marble floor, David approached me with Sarah. All these years, he said, I felt guilty for not giving her a settlement. I thought she'd really done it all on her own. She did something much harder, I replied. She convinced herself the lies were true. Emily hugged me tight. Mom, why didn't you ever say anything? Because I hoped the money would help her heal, find peace. I watched Amanda's retreating figure. Instead, it fed the worst parts of her. But that ends now. The string quartet resumed playing, but the whispers had already started. By morning, Amanda's carefully crafted image would be in tatters. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to stop protecting them from the truth. But this was just the beginning. Amanda was about to learn what real self-made success looked like, and I had 5 years of receipts to show her. Monday morning arrived with a media storm. Amanda's face was plastered across social media, her self-made success story, #now trending for all the wrong reasons. As I walked into the spa chain's headquarters, employees whispered and pointed. They had all seen the viral videos of the wedding incident. The boardroom was tense. Amanda sat at the head of the table, still trying to maintain her CEO pose in a $5,000 suit I had technically paid for. The board members, mostly her carefully selected yes men, shuffled uncomfortably. Before we begin, Amanda announced, her voice steady but strained, I want to address the malicious rumors. They're not rumors, I interrupted, taking my seat, and as the majority shareholder, I'll be leading this meeting. Shareholders? One board member frowned. I thought Ms. Reynolds owned controlling interest. I smiled, sliding documents across the polished table. Meet Aurora Investments, the actual owner of 67% of Luminous Spa Holdings. My company. Amanda's perfect posture cracked. You can't just walk in here. I can, and I am. Now let's discuss your marketing campaign. The one where you sell $5,000 success mindset seminars to divorced women, promising them your secret formula for post-divorce success. Those seminars are inspirational. Amanda protested. I help women rebuild their lives. By lying to them. I pulled up a presentation. By telling them you started with nothing while receiving $50,000 deposits every month. By selling them a fake story while they drained their savings on your exclusive mentoring. The board members shifted uneasily. Amanda's face flushed. Everything I teach works. Look at my lifestyle. Your lifestyle? I clicked to the next slide. Let's break down exactly how you afford it. For the next 30 minutes, I methodically outlined every penny she had received from my trust. The penthouse mortgage, the car leases, the designer wardrobe allowance, all carefully hidden behind layers of shell companies. This is private family business, Amanda hissed. No, this is fraud, I corrected. You've built an empire on lies. Those women deserve to know the truth. One of the board members cleared his throat. Ms. Reynolds, is this true? The trust fund. Amanda's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide her pallor. I still worked hard. The money just helped it. The money did everything. I cut in. And now it stops. You can't cut me off. Panic crept into her voice. I have commitments, expenses. You have two choices, I said, sliding a final document toward her. Option 1. Resign as CEO, publicly admit the truth about your funding, and refund every woman you scammed with your fake success story. And option 2, she whispered. I pull all funding immediately, freeze your accounts, and let the media have the full story, including the offshore paper trail. The boardroom fell silent. Amanda's hands trembled as she reached for the resignation letter. What about my reputation? Your reputation? I laughed softly. You mean the one you built by mocking others? By calling David's new wife a homewrecker at every opportunity, by slapping me at my daughter's wedding. I was hurt. You don't know what it's like. To be betrayed? To be humiliated? I stood. No, you're right. I just watched my sister turn into someone who valued designer labels over family loyalty. Tears smeared her expensive mascara. What do you want from me? The truth, Amanda. For once, just tell the truth. She looked around the boardroom, at the faces of people who had believed in her carefully crafted lie. Then, slowly, she picked up the pen. What will I do now? She asked quietly. Start over. For real this time. I took the signed resignation. There's still a job waiting at the family bookstore. The one you said was beneath you last Christmas. Amanda's laugh was hollow. From luxury spa CEO to bookstore clerk? No, I corrected. From fake success story to honest work. It's called character building. You should try it sometime. As the board members filed out, Amanda remained seated, staring at her reflection in the polished table. All those women who looked up to me will learn a valuable lesson about authenticity. I gathered my papers. The press conference is at 2. I expect you to tell them everything. Catherine? Her voice was small, reminiscent of my little sister before wealth hardened her. Why did you fund me in the first place? Because 5 years ago you were broken, and I wanted to help. I just never expected you to become so lost in the lie. As I reached the door, she called out again. The bookstore, does it still have that reading corner? The one where Dad used to tell us stories. Yes, some things are worth keeping exactly as they are. I left her there, surrounded by the remnants of her fake empire, hoping that somewhere beneath the designer clothes and practiced sneer, my sister was finally ready to find her way back to herself. 6 months later, I stood outside the family bookstore, watching Amanda arrange the children's storytime corner through the window. She wore simple jeans and a cardigan, no designer labels in sight. Her hair, now free of expensive extensions, was pulled back in a practical ponytail. The media circus had eventually died down. Amanda's public confession had gone viral, but not in the way everyone expected. Instead of destroying her, her honesty had resonated with people tired of perfectly curated social media lies. I pushed open the door, the familiar bell chiming above me. A group of women, her former seminar clients, sat in the reading area, sharing coffee and genuine conversation. And that's how I really started over, Amanda was saying. No trust fund, no shortcuts, just my sister's forgiveness and a lot of hard work. We actually prefer this version of you, one woman said. It's real. Amanda looked up as I approached. Catherine, I was just telling them about our new program. The Fresh Start Book Club had been her idea. Instead of selling expensive success seminars, she now ran free support groups for divorced women, helping them find strength through shared stories rather than shared designer brands. David and Sarah dropped by earlier, she said, sorting through children's books. Sarah's pregnant. They asked me to be the godmother. I raised an eyebrow. And? I said yes. She smiled softly. It's time to let go of old grudges. The store had transformed too. While still maintaining its cozy charm, it now included a career counseling corner where Amanda helped women build genuine business plans. Her experience, both the rise and the fall, had become a powerful teaching tool. Emily called, I said, picking up a worn copy of our childhood favorite book. She's bringing the wedding album today. Amanda flinched slightly. That slap, I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself. But I have, I reminded her. That's what matters. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, illuminating the now-framed newspaper article about Amanda's transformation. Luxury CEO turns page on fake success story, the headline read. Beneath it was a photo of her current book club, women of all backgrounds sharing their authentic journeys. You know what's funny? Amanda said, straightening a row of books. I have less now than I did 6 months ago, but I feel richer. That's because you're finally building something real. The door chimed again. Emily walked in, wedding album in hand, followed by David and Sarah. Amanda tensed for a moment, then deliberately relaxed. I brought cookies, Sarah said tentatively. For the book club. Homemade? Amanda asked. Yes, not quite as fancy as those catered ones from your old spa events. They're perfect, Amanda interrupted, taking the box. Actually, would you like to stay? We're reading The Little Engine That Could to the kids today. Sarah's face lit up. I'd love to. I watched them settle into the reading corner, the past finally giving way to a new chapter. The designer handbags and luxury cars had been replaced by something more valuable, authenticity. Mom, Emily whispered, I think Aunt Amanda finally found her way back. Sometimes, I replied, you have to lose everything to find what really matters. The evening sun cast long shadows through the bookstore windows as Amanda began reading to the gathered children, her voice strong and clear. No more fake success stories, no more carefully crafted lies. Just my sister, finally comfortable in her own skin, sharing the simple joy of a good book. The trust fund, Amanda said later as we closed up shop. I don't miss it anymore. But I smiled, because that money is going to something better now. The scholarship program for single moms. Your idea, remember? She looked around the bookstore at the life she had once considered beneath her. Thank you, Catherine, not for the money back then, but for taking it away, for making me find myself again. As we turned off the lights, the old sign above the door caught the last rays of sunlight. Park Family Books, where every story matters. Including, finally, the true story of my sister's redemption.